Right, Smitches. So it has been 2 weeks, and boy, do I have a lot to tell you. So, Memorial Day, I went to a barbecue, and it was at my boyfriend's house, and I made strawberry shortcake cookies, and they were delicious. But I have my nails done. I'll also show like an up close photo if you can't see it from here. And I have these little gems on it. And when I make cookies, I knead the dough by hand. Of course, I wash my hands. Okay? So no one get worried. I do wash my hands. But after I made the cookies and everything, I noticed that the two gems were missing. Only on this hand, and they could have come off when I was washing them, or they could have come in the dough. And I couldn't take that chance. So I didn't bring the cookies, and I was very upset about it. I did have a brief moment where I cried. Okay? I'm not ashamed to admit it. So I didn't bring the cookies. Instead, I brought Rita's. And I ate the cookies because I was like, I'm not gonna let them go to waste. So I ate them for like over a week. And each time it was like playing roulette. And turns out there was no gems in the cookies. So I did that all for nothing. And I'm very upset about it. But we moved on. Otherwise, I graduated. Well, okay. I graduated in the winter, but I officially walked in graduation just like 2 Saturdays ago. And I can't believe it. I like it's done, you know? And it's very weird. I also got really bad sunburn. I have this really bad sunburn on my shoulders, but also on my arm. I was wearing bracelets, so the bracelets divided it into sections, and it looks awful, but that's gonna be my life until winter now. It's just something I'm gonna have to deal with. And then the other day, guys, I took myself on a shopping spree. My boyfriend did come with me, he was my partner in crime that day. I try to shop like twice a year, and don't get me wrong, like every month like if I see something, I'll buy it, but I don't buy a whole lot of stuff. It's just like one thing here and one thing there. I was like, no, twice a year I'm gonna go on a shopping spree. So I went to Primark and Bath and Body Works. Primark I spent like 150 something dollars. All right, but I got so much. I mainly got pants for work. They're formal, but they're also very loungewear and they're light. So it's gonna be nice for the summer. That way I'm not wearing tight jeans and feeling constricted and gross. Like I'm feeling loose stuff, but it's still very business casual for the office. So I did a lot of that, and then Bath and Body Works is having their semi-annual sale, favorite time of the year, and I almost got like 20 candles because they were 75% off, and I had to stop myself. I told myself, Alyssa, you don't need it. You came here for wallflowers and hand sanitizer. So I did. I had self control. I used my 10 off of 40 coupon, spent like $33, and I got 6 hand sanitizers, 6 wallflowers, and then I got 2 shapeable soaps for my nephews because I got them for Christmas and they really liked it. So I got them some more. And I also got a body wash and a body lotion for Winter Candy Apple because I have like so many sprays of it just because it's my favorite scent. So I needed the full collection. I can't have the spray and not the lotion and the shower gel, you know? So that happened. And then that same night, I went to a Tricky Tray, and ironically, I won a Bath and Body Works basket. It's a his and hers, and it came with a couple travel size things, some hand soaps, and there was this big bag. I'll take a photo of it to show you guys if you're watching this on YouTube, or maybe I'll post it on the socials. Who knows? We'll go crazy. So it's a hand soap refill, and you can fill the bottle up to 3 times. And it's got to be old because Bath and Body Works does not sell that, and also it's like only 12.50 to fill 3 bottles of soap. There's no way that's 12.50. You're kidding. Also, I just realized I have to stop doing this. I keep looking at myself and not the camera, and no, no, no. I have to watch myself, guys. If I do it again, someone let me know, okay? And then my mom, she won something that I really wanted. I put like 20 tickets into it and I didn't win, but she won it and she gave it to me. It was 4 tickets to Legoland, and I'm so excited. I have to call because the hotel, they only have packages where you get the hotel room and then 2-day tickets, but I already have the tickets. I just want the hotel room. So I'm going to see if there's any way for them to accommodate that. And otherwise, she did win this craft basket and she gave me watercolor paint, which I'm very excited about because I've been wanting to try watercolor paint. I just haven't had the chance to yet, and also haven't really felt inspired or known what to make. And speaking of crafts, I finished my diamond dots after God knows how many hours or weeks I did it. And I'll insert a photo if you're watching on YouTube. I'm so sorry to the people that are listening to this audio on other places than YouTube, because sometimes I forget and I'll just talk or I'll show people things and I forget that I have to also describe it. Like even with my nails, saying that they have studs on them, like I'm showing them on camera, but all you know is that they have studs on them. Like you don't know the color. They are like this blue teal, and then the ring finger is this clearish nude color, like a cream. And no, it's more of like a sheer baby pink. I think that matches it more. And then it has these little white flowers on it, and then these 2 yellow stones that are supposed to be the middle of the flower. I think I do have it on my social media though, if you want to check it there, probably in one of my photos that I posted. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So let's actually officially get into the episode. Hey you guys, welcome to the Smidging Hour. It's Alyssa, and for this episode today, I'm going to be joined by my sister Amanda to discuss John Wayne Gacy. So, let's roll the clip. I want to talk about how we filmed an episode together, what, like 4 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
And I did edit it and I did premiere it and I decided to delete it.
Not because of me.
No, not because of you.
Not because it was bad.
So the thing is Molly, she she edits the audio and then I edit the YouTube video. So I made the YouTube video, was fine. The edited audio we didn't do. So like a week after, I asked for it and then I edited it. But the thing is that there was so much we had to cut out due to it being in a different location. Like usually if I'm upstairs in my office, it's quiet at least. But
we went to my house and it was rambunctious. It's a little bit of a nut house. There's too much going on.
Yeah, so there was a lot to cut out, and not even that too. It's just I wasn't as prepared. I wasn't able to spend time on like actually reading the whole article because it was a long article. It was a long story, and to portray it correctly, without sounding stupid, I have to practice, and I didn't at all. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna cut this out completely. And then it was just yours, and it was maybe like 20 minutes, and I was like, also, you're the guest, so you shouldn't be the one who's
carrying
like,
the weight of the show
exactly.
on my back.
So yeah, I decided, you know what, no, we're just gonna start over, which is when I released the other episode 2 weeks ago. And then now that we have like this structure, we can, because last episode, I don't know if you listened to it for me, but it was more somber and like serious because I was like, all right guys, like this is the new structure, this is what we're doing. So now that we're actually into it and we're all comfortable and on the same page, we can have fun with it.
Tons of fun.
We're gonna go crazy. So we're talking about John Wayne Gacy. And we were saying about before, we've watched, did you see the whole series, The Confessions with a Killer?
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
I did.
So I watched that too, and I was actually watching it while I was putting this script together. But there's so much that I didn't realize. Like, I was looking at one article and I was like, okay, this should be good. And it wasn't good. There's just so much to tell that I needed more. So we're going to talk about him. This article I found was from biography.com. And then also, some of the notes I'm going to mention is just things I heard while watching the series. So, an overview of who he is if you don't know, which you probably should know. It's John Wayne Gacy. He's an American serial killer and pederast, which means that he had sexual activity with like young males, youth, boys. And in total, as far as we know right now, he murdered 33 young males, and this was in Cook County, Illinois. And he did this through rape and then through torture. But also, there were some instances where he didn't murder men, which we'll get into as well. So, most of them ended up being buried under his house. Um, there was this crawl space in his house that he put most of the bodies under, and then he also had a garage, and he buried some of them under cement. And then there was also the, is it Des Plaines River?
Yeah, Des Plaines.
Yeah. He also threw some bodies into there. So as of right now, we know that there were 33, but who knows if there could have been more. He did confirm that there was at least 30, but he was also like, police, you can do your own job. He was kind of a jerk.
He was.
Yeah.
And he was not remorseful at all.
But the thing is that in the beginning, he didn't seem like a jerk. He was like, I am for the county. I am a man of God.
Well, that was, yeah, it's a
but
persona
again, it was
that
all
he
like
put on. But he was always very arrogant with the people he was around.
Yeah.
He was part of that Democratic club
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And he was always trying to, like, kind of one-up everybody,
Yeah.
you know, and be the center of attention.
Even, again, referencing the documentary, when it first starts, which I also love when it's confession tapes, because I love hearing it from the source. Yeah. And again, they don't use much of his, like, voice talking about it himself. It's all through interviews they've done. But I could sit and listen to the tape itself, but I'm sure you're not going to get the full story from him. He's probably going to sugarcoat a lot of things, especially since after he did plead guilty and everything, he was like, no, I take it back. I'm innocent.
Wasn't me. I was on vacation.
It was a joke. And you fell for it. Thank you. So, yeah, it was just interesting hearing that. And the fact that they started the documentary with him being like, you can call me whatever you want to call me. Like, he was just very sassy. Yeah. He goes, some communist, some communist, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, hold up. All right. It's just your name. Relax. She just asked who you were. That's it.
Yeah, very, very aggressive.
Yeah. So, also you might know him as the killer clown.
Right.
So he used to dress up for like children's parties. He would go to children's hospitals and stuff dressed as a clown. He was known as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown. And I wanted to mention this because everyone associates him with this killer clown, but there was no confirmation that he actually killed dressed as a clown.
Right. Like in American Horror Story, they had a killer clown years ago when they did the season Freak Show, and people said it was based off John Wayne Gacy, but yeah, no confirmation that he killed dressed as a clown. I don't think he did.
I don't think he did either. But then again, Molly and I have said it in a previous episode, it was a long time ago, killers always have their quirks. Maybe that was his quirk. Yeah. I think part of it too, the whole clown thing of like why they think he might have killed as a clown was because it seemed like he had an obsession with them. So he had the clown paintings in his house. Yeah. And then when he was in jail, he took up painting and art in general, and all he would paint is himself as clown. But like, I don't know, maybe it could be that he killed as a clown, but I don't know, I feel like he would have said something.
Yeah, that's a pretty big detail to leave out. I don't think he dressed as a clown, though, when he
No, I don't either.
I think he was just obsessed with clowns, because
I think maybe it was stemming from childhood trauma.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, when you're dressed as a clown, it's a mask you're putting on in front of everybody. You know, you can be whoever you want.
Yeah. So going into his early life,
Mm-hmm.
because we were saying about his childhood trauma, taking on these other personas. So, growing up, he was born on March 17th, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. So, he's always been in Illinois, just different parts of it. He had two sisters, Joanne and Karen. He did come from an alcoholic and abusive father, and we were actually talking previously before this about how his father had like his own area, which was the basement, and he didn't want anyone down there. And John Wayne Gacy kind of had the same thing. First, he had the basement, and then the garage.
Yep.
Um, and he also didn't really have friends, so he had a heart condition, so he couldn't really play with people in school.
So a bit of an outcast.
Yeah.
Loner.
Mm-hmm.
By himself. And imagine, being he's a boy with only sisters.
Yeah. So you can't really connect too much.
Yeah.
And through this, like, he was struggling, like, with his sexuality. So he did say to his one wife that he was bisexual once later in life. But that could influence it too, like not having that support of like how to go about it. You're isolated. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
So then going into his later life, he did have a variety of jobs. So in the 1960s, he ended up being a fast food chain manager for, what was it, KFC?
KFC, yep.
Yeah. Which he does look like a KFC kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And
I'm surprised he never dressed up as the Colonel.
Well, the funny thing was, I was reading, and he would show up to events or something. I don't know if it was with his clubs, but he would show up to events with a bucket of KFC and was like, "Call me the Colonel."
That's weird.
And I was like, "I don't like you. You're
That's
disgusting." So that was apparently a thing.
Yeah.
But during this time, he married Marilyn Myers and then had the two children. And then in 1970, he married Carol Hoff, and he didn't take, but she had two stepdaughters, so he was part of their lives.
So his first marriage actually fell apart because he did get arrested early on for like sexual assault of a minor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So that is actually what tore apart his first marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And those two children were taken away from him.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I'm surprised that after the fact, like, he still was able to get married.
Yeah. Well, I think he like
unless
moved
she like didn't know that. Yeah.
Moved to a different town. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Made a new life.
Started fresh. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was at that point in time in 1970, he was a self-made contractor for buildings. And he was also the Democratic precinct captain in Chicago and organized cultural events. He was part of the JC group, which I looked up, and I mean, they're a civic group. That's really about it. I couldn't really find too much information about them. And he was active in political organizations, so he was very big in politics and really being in the light. Like, a lot of people knew him.
Yeah.
Though and some people did suspect that he was weird, but also, like, since he was such a good man front, they were like, he's fine.
Yeah, he's just a little weird sometimes.
Yeah, it's fine. Who cares?
He dresses as a clown sometimes, but that's just his thing.
Yeah. Everyone has their niche and quirk.
Yeah.
His quirk was clowns.
Yeah.
God, I hate that. Going back to the Killer Clowns, I was telling my sister how there used to be this movie. I don't know if anyone remembers it. It was called Killer Clowns. It was such a bad movie, but I vividly remember watching it and being horrified by it. And it was literally just clowns, like, shooting people with laser guns. And I thought it was terrifying, but it wasn't at all.
Yeah, I don't remember ever watching that.
I don't know. And I think part of my clown trauma is because my uncle, I think he still does have it, had like a clown mask and might still have it because he refused to let Grace get rid of it.
Mm.
And he used to put it on, and I would come through the door and he'd be behind the door and he'd jump out and scare me with it. As a child.
There's no one buried in the basement, right?
I hope not. It's an unfinished basement, so I think we would be able to tell. But that does add a little creepy level to it.
Yeah.
Who knows what's down there. And then that's kind of his life. So he was very big in politics, very big in the spotlight. Going into the crimes themselves, so as we said, in 1968, he was convicted of sexual assault of two teen boys, and he was supposed to be sentenced in prison for 10 years, and that's when he divorced from his first wife. So he only ended up serving about 18 months and then was released on parole in the summer.
Even in prison, he was like very popular. Like when he was in prison, he like ran the kitchen and everything.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that. He like ran the kitchen, and I think they asked him like, "What do you want to become a chef or something like that?" Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Why not?"
Yeah.
Yeah. He but I think again he was trying to maintain that front of innocence, like, oh, I would never do something like this.
Yeah. But I think it's also, he obviously had a very big ego, so he wanted to be like the center of attention, but also wanted control, right? So when he was in all these positions of power, he was in control. Same with his killings, in control. And maybe part of that is because his father was an alcoholic and was in charge of the household and stuff, and maybe he felt like he didn't have control over things in his life. So maybe that is a reason he wanted to be in all these positions of power.
It could be because his father like diminished him so much that he's like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong, which I feel like is usually how it goes.
Yeah.
And then after this, after being in jail for that time and getting out, a year later he ends up being arrested again for another sexual assault, but the boy ended up not showing up at the trial, so the case got dropped. It wasn't important. Everyone was like, oh well. Mm-hmm. And then in mid-1970, again, these keep coming up. He's accused of rape by two young males, and then later came the questions about different disappearances of young males. So, like, you think he would learn his lesson and be like, oh, I'm getting caught. People are coming forward. He didn't care. He didn't care.
Well,
because he kept getting away with it.
Yeah. Which happens with a lot of murderers. Like, they get away with it in the beginning and they're able to continue until it's just too much. But him being part of all these clubs and him running his own construction company, like, he had basically unlimited access to all these young men and boys, right? And so he was able to just like use them to his advantage, but he I don't know, if you're gonna murder someone, like, why are you picking people close to you? Like, that's kind of why the police caught on, because it was like, okay, all these young guys who work at your construction company are disappearing, like, and that ended up biting him later.
Well, part of it too is like, the thing is that until, which we'll talk about in a second, this one guy goes missing. No one really suspected anything about his construction workers like disappearing.
Yeah.
Until this one guy went missing and they started looking into other disappearances, they were like, oh wait, there's a pattern. Like, why did no one look beforehand?
Well, you have to imagine too, this is back in the 70s. We're talking.
You're right.
This is before, people had cell phones, before people were on social media. Now someone goes missing,
it's everywhere.
Like, it, because it's like, oh, someone's not posting on their Instagram.
Strange.
Someone's not answering their text messages. Strange. Yeah. Right? But back then, it's like people were just
it's like,
basically floating around. Yeah. But that too. Sometimes he would pick up young men just like on the street, and these were just could be runaways or people just traveling like in and out of towns. So.
And at that point, no one's really looking for them. If they're a runaway, they're going to stay hidden.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So, again, he's accused of this, and then he starts getting questions about other disappearances. So, the first known killing was in 1972. I believe he killed from 1972 to 1978. And it was 16-year-old Timothy McCoy after being lured to his home. And another one that was interesting, it was one of the kind of middle eras of his killing spree, my sister was saying how there was a man who was kidnapped, which was in the documentary, but I vaguely remembered it.
Yeah, Jeffrey Rignall.
Yep, and
Yep.
he let him go, which was very strange because he's killing them at this point. He's in the middle and in the, I guess, probably the high of it right now.
Yeah, so this was March of 78, and this was actually between the time where he was running out of room in his crawl space of his basement. He already, at this point, had, I think it was like 28 or 29 bodies, and he had already buried some on the property under concrete, which we talked about. And this was before he started dumping bodies in the river. So he ended up running out of room in his house, didn't have anywhere else to bury a body. I guess at this point did not think of the river.
I finally got it.
You got the bug. Is it a mosquito?
I think it is. Guys, okay. It's about time we address the situation in the room, the elephant. When she first came over and we were deciding how we're going to film this, what we're going to talk about, how we're going to talk about things, there was this bug flying around and I kept trying to slap it and kill it and I couldn't do it with all my might. Couldn't get it. And I saw it floating over there a couple seconds ago, but I was like, no, it's fine. Like, until it comes this way, I'm going to ignore it. I got it. And I'm going to wash my hands.
Yes, please do.
So I'll be back. I'm disgusted. Okay, continuing.
Right, so, yeah, we were talking about Jeffrey Rignall. This is between the time of John Wayne Gacy burying people in his crawl space and throwing people in the river. So that's one of the, theories of, like, why he let this guy go, is that he just didn't have anywhere to put a body, and he didn't think to put bodies in the river yet at this point. So, yeah, he had kidnapped Jeffrey Rignall. He gotten him into his car. They were like smoking weed or something, and then he chloroformed him. Okay, drove him back to his place. Raped and assaulted him. And then took him back out where he got him originally and just like dumped him on the side of the road. And he had chloroform burns on his face. He had rope burns and everything. Was clearly covered in bruises, and ended up going to the police, and the police did not take him seriously at all. They, this is back in the 70s, so, they saw some gay man come in, clearly went through something, but they didn't pay no mind to it, right? And Jeffrey didn't have, he had a few memories from the event, him being brought to John Wayne Gacy's house, so he knew what kind of make the car was. He knew a little bit about the license plate, and so him and his partner at the time went and decided to stake him out themselves. So they did end up finding John Wayne Gacy eventually through all the staking out, but the police did not do anything about it, basically.
I know we were saying how there's theories that John Wayne Gacy let him go because of space issues, but the thing is that if this was in like the heightened part of his murders, I still find it weird because even if there was a space issue there, he could have still dumped the body in the river unless they already started discovering bodies in the river, or...
No, I think this was before he started dumping the bodies in the river.
Oh, okay. So then the space issue, yeah, that makes sense. But then, if that's the case, why after was he like, wait a minute, there's a river nearby, maybe I should do that? Like, why was this the exception where he was like, oh my god, unless there was other circumstances going on at the time that he was like, oh, I don't have time to do this, like I have other things I have to do.
Right. Or maybe he realized his mistake, oh, I shouldn't have let someone go.
Yeah.
Because now this guy was staking him out.
Yeah, and was able to identify him.
Yeah. Now, had the police taken him seriously, Jeffrey Rignall, and they were able to find John Wayne Gacy, like, the next, like, 4 or 5 murders wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. Could have been prevented. And then, besides this, in December of 1978, December 11th in specific, that was when 15-year-old Rob Peace went missing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in the documentary, was one of the main focal points. That's kind of what they start the documentary with. And basically, his mom last saw him when he went to his job at the grocery store. I think he was a bag boy or something like that.
No, it
Or
was
a drugstore.
pharmacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, pharmacy.
So she last saw him there, and then there was one of his coworkers, and I think she borrowed his jacket or something like that. And that day she went to get photos. What's the word for it?
Developed.
It's so old, I don't even remember.
Yeah, people do not develop film anymore, yeah.
I just request that they get printed on that specific paper at CVS, and that's it. From my phone. So, yeah, she got the photos developed, and she had the receipt from it in her pocket, which was his jacket. And I think he ended up taking his jacket back because that night he goes missing after he was talking to Gacy about a potential construction job. And once they started looking into John Wayne Gacy for other disappearances, and then also they suspected Rob Peace because that was what everyone's saying. He was last seen with Gacy. They had multiple search warrants. They went once, they went twice, and they found the receipt
in his garbage.
Yes. And that's how they were able to identify that Rob Peace had definitely been with Gacy, and Gacy had lied about the whole thing. So that was when... So, 10 days later was when they did this investigation at his house, and that's when they found it. And then again with all the other disappearances. So they found that he was involved in multiple crimes, murders, just rapes, tortures, kidnaps, you name it. And there was also a lot of people had claims that there was an unusual stench coming from his house, and this was even before they found the bodies.
This was because he was married.
Yeah.
That his
during
second wife.
Yeah,
his second wife, and had 2 stepdaughters. And during this time, he was still burying people in his house.
Yeah.
So
friends had no idea. They were just like, "Oh, it's a stench," but he said it was mold or rats, rodents.
So I think with his second marriage, I think he had started burying people in the basement, and then his wife moved in, right, with the 2 kids, and he was still doing all these murders during that time.
And they had no idea. And I mean, even when police first went there for the first search warrant, they did check the crawl space, but they weren't My tummy growled. I don't know if anyone heard that.
I'm hungry. I didn't have breakfast.
I know, me too. They weren't looking properly, so when they were suspicious by the crawl place that he had, crawl space, but they were looking for something that was freshly dug. They were expecting to see a mound of dirt or something, but he had it leveled. He just buried them completely under, and even employees, I believe, went in there
would bury, because he would have them dig down there, his employees.
Yeah, and he's like, no, don't dig over there.
Yeah.
He'd get very, defensive, and they're like, all right, I won't dig. So.
I don't know how he kept track of, where everyone was buried in there. In my mind, you would have to draw something out or have markers put in there so you knew, oh, I already buried someone over there.
I think... Because the thing is that there were some bodies on top of bodies, so I think he just did whatever. And he was like, oh, there's a body here. It's fine, I'll dig it lower and then put that body and then the body over it.
No, maybe.
I remember, oh god, the documentary was just awful. People going down there and they're like, alright, we have body number 1, body number 7, body number 20. There was just, it just kept coming, and everyone's like, when is it gonna end? So... due to the severity of how many bodies there were and the excavation of all of them, they were near his garage, they were in his house, like, and not just the crawl space. Well, I guess the crawl space, but like in different areas of the house. So like the kitchen, like the crawl space
Yeah, they
under
had to dig
there,
up.
like
They had to
yeah,
like take out like part
flooring.
of the flooring
Yeah,
because this crawl space, it's you couldn't stand in the crawl space.
yeah,
It was
but it's massive.
I think it was like it had to have been maybe like 4 feet high. I don't think you could fully stand in there. And so yeah, they had to knock out some of the flooring in the house just to get to everything.
And then at that point, usually or normally when they do something with search warrants and stuff and they do damage to the property, they usually fix it up. But at that point, it was just a mass like burial site and everyone was like it needs to go. So they decided to demolish the house and it was rebuilt and I believe it was sold. So now someone lives there.
I would not live there.
And I mean the thing is like you could still visit it but it's not the same. And also it's someone's property, so you shouldn't visit it. But like no you could still like look from the outside and be like there were dead bodies under there.
I don't know how someone would live there after that.
Yeah. It's got to be some bad hauntings. No.
I wouldn't be able to do it.
And the funny thing is that as we were saying, like he had his employees digging down there, like he blamed his employees.
He did. After he had confessed, he then tried to say, "Oh, it wasn't me. I was really only involved in 2 of them." And the rest was like when I was on vacation and it was done by my employees because they had access to my house.
Like he tried taking it all back.
Yeah.
It's like
you can't do that.
No, you just confess to it
30 plus murders and just be like, "Oh, it wasn't me."
Yeah. So that was a little weird. And actually, maybe I'll talk about it in a different episode because there's this other documentary about it's called Making a Murderer, and it's about these 2 guys, an uncle and a nephew, and this woman goes missing, and this uncle was originally wrongly convicted, so he finally gets out, and then this woman's murdered, and all signs are pointing to him, and they so he's saying he's raped, he goes to jail, and they're like, no, someone else has to be involved in it, so they go to the nephew, and the nephew has like learning disabilities. He has a poor IQ and he's in like special needs classes.
Right.
And the detectives, they interrogate him without his mom. So he's by himself and they're feeding him the information. So they're like, oh, something happened to her head. What happened to her head? He's like, I don't know. We stabbed her. And they're like, no. The head, what happened? And he goes, I'm just going to be honest. Who shot her? And he goes, he did. Like, they're feeding him these answers. And I can't confirm if it's true or not. These men are still in jail, and people are fighting for them to get out because they believe, again, they were wrongly convicted, and it was either someone else who committed the murders or the police that framed them for it. But that's wrong.
It is.
But the thing is that the kid confessed, and they're holding his confession, even though he's like, no, like, this was forced out of me.
Yeah.
In this instance with Gacy, it's definitely his confession is his confession. You can't take that back. But like with these other people, you should take it back.
Yeah,
you should take it back.
I have to watch that. I have not watched that yet.
It's very good, and I believe it was 2 seasons because the first season came out and there was an uproar. Everyone was investigating the case. Everyone was fighting for them to get out, and then Netflix made a season 2 with all like the news articles and stuff about them coming out with the documentary, and all like the officials that were in it were like, they're not giving the whole story, they're only feeding you this, it's very biased, blah blah blah. So then they continued it from there about them trying to get them out.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a very good series. It's called Making a Murderer. And maybe I'll talk about that more in depth in another episode, or if you watch it, we could both talk about it.
I'll have to watch it. I'll have to watch it right away.
So again, besides blaming his employees, his confession, most of the bodies were identified. Before this documentary came out, I believe there were still like 8 or so bodies that weren't identified, and then over the years, as our DNA analyzation became more advanced, they were able to identify some of them like decades later. So right now there's only 5 bodies that are still not identified.
Yeah, they had just identified one a year ago.
Yeah. And then besides all of this, then we get into the court case.
Mm-hmm.
So we have his confession. His trial began February 6, 1980. 1980? Did I just say that?
Get it together.
February 6, 1980. And originally, they were trying to get an insanity plea for him.
Of course.
Do you think he's insane?
Well, see, that's where it's tricky. It's like there obviously is something wrong with you, because no sane individual would kill that many people.
Yeah.
But there's like a line drawn. It's like, is the person able to tell right from wrong? Do they know what they did was a crime and it was wrong?
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He was not clinically insane.
And he was trying to say like that it was his altered persona who committed the crimes.
Which doesn't make sense, because it's like, okay, if it was your alter ego or your alter personality, you probably would have been dressed like a clown then when you did them.
Exactly.
When you did those murders.
You're right.
But he wasn't.
No, he was just like, oh, it's a different me.
Yeah.
Because if he was trying to go with the insanity plea, he should have been like, oh, it was my alter ego Pogo.
Yeah.
Like, he should have said it was the clown.
Yeah.
But he didn't. So he screwed himself over.
He did. And he didn't feel any remorse.
No. Mm-mm.
For these crimes. He didn't.
Yeah. So then, even with the insanity plea, they ended up finding him guilty, of course, of 33 murders. But again, as far as we know, who knows, there could have been more. I don't think under his house necessarily, but if there were potentially more in the river,
yeah.
Who knows? And also, I don't think he cared enough to keep track of all his victims.
Right.
I don't think he had like a list of who he killed.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So he was sentenced to 12 death sentences and then 21 life sentences. So it was a pretty done deal. And he did try to appeal the sentence over the years that he was in jail, and even offered contradictory statements. As we said, he was trying to blame his coworkers or say that, well, not coworkers, his employees, yeah, and say that either they were working with him or that it was them who were doing this. Which, again, is kind of like, how could you say that when it's in your house?
Yeah, and even so, if you did have employees helping you, like,
You're still guilty.
You're still guilty.
Yeah. So, after his appeals being denied and still being guilty, he recorded a 12-minute statement declaring his innocence, which obviously no one really cared about, and he ended up dying by lethal injection on May 10th, 1994, which was at a different correctional facility. It was Stateville Correctional Center, and his last words apparently were, "Kiss my ass."
Which we don't know if that's true or not, or if it's just the publicity thing.
Yeah.
But it does go to
sound
show,
like he would.
Probably. But it does go to show he did have no remorse. Even if you watch the Netflix documentary and his confession tapes, like, he did not care.
No.
Did not care. Did not feel bad.
And I don't know if it's because they, like, take bits and pieces of the audio, but even with taking bits and pieces of the audio, I doubt that there were any times in his complete audio that he was nice.
Right.
You know? So, that's John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. Oh, and his last meal, because I always think this is very interesting, last meals. So he asked for a dozen fried shrimp, a bucket of KFC chicken, French fries, a pound of strawberries, and a bottle of Diet Coke.
I understand, like, the KFC part of it, but the rest I don't. Like, why do you want that many strawberries? And also...
Well, the pound is like a container full.
When you get these final meals, do you finish the whole thing? Do you think they do?
I don't know, because some people have had really crazy last meals, and
how long do you have to eat it?
I don't know, I think it's like the night before. And some states have, like, gotten rid of it, too, because I think some people have asked for, like, crazy things and then, like, not even eaten it.
Yeah. They just did it out
Like,
of
just
spite.
out of spite, yeah.
Huh. I didn't even think someone would do that. But I guess that's just how crazy you are.
Yeah.
So, I was talking to you about this briefly. This, it's not necessarily the same circumstances, but there's another documentary on Netflix. It's called The Worst Roommate. And the first episode is of this old woman, and she takes people in and houses them and feeds them. And she ends up like drugging them and taking their money from their like welfare checks or something. And she buries them in her backyard. And no one catches on because everyone just thinks she's like a nice old lady. And these are also people that no one really checks on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to get away with. And then finally, she gets caught doing it. And they dug up like 13 bodies in her backyard. And there was one point where she like tried to flee and everything.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the same as John Wayne Gacy because like he couldn't really flee anywhere, so he didn't even bother to flee. He was just like, "No, I'm innocent. I'm innocent." And then he's like, "Actually, I'm guilty. Sorry." So I just thought that was crazy because you don't really think to go to someone's house to find bodies. And you were even saying like it's your property, no one's gonna dig up bodies unless they have a warrant.
Yeah, I remember watching a show one time, and something on the IT channel, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the, I think it was a psychologist on there or something, said like one of the best places to hide bodies is on your property because unless they have a warrant and probable cause to look,
Mm-hmm.
like who's looking on your property, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like John Wayne Gacy, he was able to hide like 29 bodies on his property before anyone even caught on to him.
Mm-hmm. That's so wild.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So when you visit someone's house, you just never
Just
know.
beware.
You never know.
I mean, it's even the same like thing with animals. Everyone buries their dead animals on their property, and no one thinks of it.
Yeah, how many hamsters do we have on the house we grew up?
Oh my god, that's horrible. That's terrifying. Imagine buying a house and not knowing that there's dead animals all in the yard. They should like warn you. Hey, we dug some animals in
Well,
here.
it's people have always done that.
I know, but it's weird. You don't think of that when you're buying a house. That there could be a dead dog under there. What if
Yeah.
it just washes up one day? Alrighty, guys, so it's back to just me, which means we are going to get into our nebula check before we close out the episode. So, our focus of the week is dreams and dreaming. So, love is 50%, career is 70%, and health is 70%. My standout days are Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. You tend to be more prone to wanderlust this week, dreaming about the future and letting your mind travel into daydreams. Mercury changes signs on Monday, which helps spur on fantastic ideas and opens up your creativity. Then on Tuesday, at the full moon, you feel increased amounts of inspiration for the future. Relationships bring out some unique sides of yourself this week. The moon is in your seventh house of partnerships, starting late on Thursday through Saturday evening. This helps you and a lover have some important and detailed conversations. Discuss your boundaries with each other and make sure you are sharing your truth as best as you can. Your wellness routines will be especially easy to follow midweek. You are feeling more disciplined about things you have been hoping to accomplish, and luck is on your side. You will notice that things seem to fortuitously work out for your overall. Your connections are especially beautiful space for you to share your talents and abilities this week. The sun aligns with the mystical Neptune on Thursday, making your interactions feel magical and unique. Be ready to express your artistic sides as your dreamy nature unfolds in front of others. Social situations will tend to be more theatrical, fun, and expressive. I like that. So that is all I have for you today. I want to thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed me having my sister on today to talk about John Wayne Gacy. I do plan on having other guests, be it friends or maybe local businesses or different people in different fields that relate to our subjects or show interest in our subjects. So I'm looking forward to that. If you guys could please like and subscribe to us on YouTube And if you could follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, that would mean a lot. If you could rate or like, I don't really know what's available, but please, whatever is available, please do. That would help tremendously. And you could find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all at the Smidging Hour. As for my personal, it's Alyssa Grace _X on Instagram. Truly, guys, I really just want to thank you so much for supporting the podcast and also supporting me through this transition. That's all I have for you guys this week. So bye, Smidges. I'll see you in 2 weeks.